I'm in no mood for you.
Everyone remembers Richie Aprile as ruthless and dangerous. But here's the truth. He was the single dumbest character in the series. And I can prove it. Richie Aprile is, without competition, the most catastrophically inept antagonist in The Sopranos. A man so allergic to self-preservation that his entire post-prison arc reads like a checklist of what not to do in organized crime.
A drug bust on one of those routes, it's a different story. You got the FBI.
His return is less a comeback and more a speed run toward either death or prison, whichever happened to arrive first.
Come on, Richie. You're captain now. And I salute. So exert a little pressure.
If mob life requires cunning, discipline, or even the faintest instinct for survival, Richie is living proof that the system occasionally promotes pure idiocy to a position of power. From the moment he's released, Richie manages to alienate every possible ally.
Thought I told you to back the fuck off Beansy.
I did. Then I put it in dry.
He cripples Beansy despite Tony personally telling him to stand down. A move so brazenly disrespectful it should have earned him an unceremonious burial on the spot. Tony's restraint at the time was remarkable, a rare flicker of magnanimity. But Richie treated it as license to escalate his stupidity.
Gonna blow?
What?
Blow. Coke.
He sabotages garbage routes, starts a coke operation already under federal scrutiny, and runs scams so pathetically inefficient that they border on parody.
Well, fuck that. He's never getting paid anyway. They gotta be all red.
The Nigerian refrigerator scheme, in particular, is a masterclass in criminal incompetence. The kind of caper that could only exist in the fever dream of a man who thinks ingenuity means sell heavy junk nobody wants. Even Ralph Cifaretto, an unhinged, coke-addled maniac, manages to appear industrious and profitable by comparison. His personal life is no less farcical. Marrying Janice was not only ill-advised, but financially suicidal.
Not bad, huh, Carm? Oh, wow. I mean, if we have kids, my house is just not big enough.
Especially when paired with the purchase of a house he couldn't possibly afford on parole. This was less a romantic union than a grotesque merger of two human sinkholes. The relationship was a high-volume catastrophe, culminating, fittingly, in domestic violence that underscored Richie's hypocrisy.
I ever hear you raise your hands to my niece again. Next time you won't see my face.
After preaching to Christopher that one only lays hands on a woman once she bears the family name, he made good on that principle by waiting until Janice was essentially his wife before beating her. The irony writes itself.
My future brother-in-law's caused a serious problem. How serious?
And yet, Richie still believed himself a contender. He misread every room he entered, mistaking intimidation for strategy and violence for respect.
Rich, this is Matthew Bevilacqua and Sean Gismonti. They're both from West Orange.
His handling of the Bevilacqua incident, flailing with a baseball bat instead of recognizing that certain people might want to interrogate the kid, was the move of a man whose emotional range topped out at tantrum.
A good boy, Richie.
It's gonna be good.
His alliance with Junior was equally pathetic, a puppet act in which Richie didn't realize he was the marionette.
It's the jacket!
The jacket.
The jacket.
Even his pièce de résistance, the famous jacket gifted to Tony, was less a gesture of camaraderie than a sad relic of a past Richie couldn't escape. That he may have stolen it off a senile Rocco DeMeo rather than actually fought him only amplifies the comedy. Richie Aprile, terror of Essex County, reduced to bullying geriatrics for outerwear. It is worth remembering that The Sopranos consistently underscores why certain men end up in prison.
It's all about setting the precedent.
Characters like Richie, Feach, or Tony Blendetto emerge from long bids not rehabilitated, but frozen in time. Dinosaurs swinging their tails at a world that has moved on without them.
You know, he may never walk again.
Never say never.
No. Say never.
The petty shakedowns, the sloppy coke deals, the parking of stolen goods in one's own garage, these are not marks of old-school honor, but of brainless arrogance.
You know, the government's using electronic surveillance and...
By the 1990s, crime required discretion. Cameras were everywhere, surveillance was sophisticated, and law enforcement had adapted.
Do you remember one thing, and this you better hear? You want to talk all this old school bullshit about the rules?
Men like Richie had not. They were stuck in the era when throwing your weight around in the neighborhood guaranteed impunity. By the time Richie was out, that approach was a one-way ticket back to a cell. Tony's decision to let Richie live as long as he did says less about tolerance and more about family politics. Janice's involvement complicated matters, though Richie overestimated how much protection marriage would afford.
You think you'll come down on the price?
He seemed to believe tying himself to Tony's sister would insulate him. In reality, it only tethered him to his own destruction. Tony himself, while not shy about disposing of made men when necessary, recognized Richie as a problem, but didn't need to bloody his own hands.
It's gonna be a while before I eat anything from Satry House.
Janice solved that dilemma, delivering a bullet to Richie before Silvio ever had the chance. The look of quiet relief on Tony's face when he finds Richie dead is one of the most telling moments of the series. A boss spared the paperwork of killing a made man by the convenient intervention of his sister's lunacy. Some defenders argue Richie was more cunning than given credit, that his gambits against Tony were the only rational way for an aging ex-con to claw back relevance. The truth is less flattering.
See, obviously, Richie, you're fucking deaf. Because I told you 10 times. Then I found out you're still dealing blow on those garbage roots.
Had Richie chosen respect over rebellion, sat down with Tony, sought rulings in disputes like Beansy's, fallen into line as a loyal captain, he might have survived, even thrived. Instead, he chose to swagger, to steamroll, to pretend that the 1970s rules of mob sovereignty still applied.
You said we're being pissed on, disrespected, and then we should score points with Richie.
His disrespect for Tony, Silvio, Paulie, and essentially anyone who mattered in the new regime left him isolated, propped up only by Junior's increasingly irrelevant approval and the empty loyalty of disposable underlings. He was, in essence, a violent has-been, thrashing against irrelevance, until the inevitable happened. To put Richie's idiocy in perspective, one must compare him with other disasters in the series.
According to Johnny Sack, kid's brains are splattered all over the seat.
Joe Peeps?
Tony Blundetto, for example, was supposedly gifted with high IQ, but made choices equally ruinous, botching Peeps' murder, flaunting incriminating injuries, self-sabotaging his legitimate prospects, and ultimately failing to kill Phil Leoptardo when it mattered. If Richie embodied violent stupidity, Tony B embodied squandered potential.
Where's Blundetto?
Both illustrate the show's larger point. Intelligence alone doesn't save you in this life. Adaptability does. Those who clung to the good old days ended up buried in them. The comedy of Richie Aprile lies in his tragic self-delusion.
We're old school, right? We wash our own dirty laundry.
He believed himself formidable, feared, respected. A man from the old school, whose very presence demanded reverence. In reality, he was a cautionary tale, a thug who mistook brutality for brilliance. A relic so far behind, he believed he was winning.
Don't give me your fucking Manson lamps. Just fucking stop.
He strutted around with Manson lamps, convinced the show was about him, only to be shocked when the writers quite literally wrote him off.
Well, what about Richie? He must be devastated.
Richie's gone.
Janice pulling the trigger wasn't just the end of Richie. It was the final punchline to a character who had been a walking red flag from the moment he appeared. Richie Aprile was not a tragic anti-hero. He was not a misunderstood tactician. He was a moron with a made man's badge. Proof that the mob sometimes promotes the dangerously stupid. His downfall was not a twist, but an inevitability.
How about you been out of the can 10 fucking minutes already trying to shake down Beansy for a piece of his pizza joint?
One that arrived faster than most because Richie himself hit the accelerator. The highlight of his arc is not his violence, not his bluster, not even the vaunted jacket.
Richie Aprile, exactly. No doubt about it, the cartel had him whacked.
It is the simple fact that his death was met not with sorrow, but with the faint sigh of relief from every character and every viewer who had endured his spectacular incompetence. Everyone sighed when Richie died. You'll sigh too, if you don't subscribe.